Item number 2020-0178, an ordinance to enact a moratorium on the approval of major subdivisions, more than 5 lots, until lifted for any community as defined by ordinance number 00-9-11, upon completion of parish drainage and sewage master plans for that community where the results have been accepted by resolution of the Parish Council or 18 months, whichever occurs first. Mr. Bingham.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Jewell for this, please.
Parish President Jewell.
Thank you, Chairman. Every time it rains, like I said earlier, I like to go out and look at the drainage in different areas of the parish to get a better understanding of what's actually happening during events. One thing that I've seen in riding with Miles Bingham and riding out with various folks from my administration is that we have outdated, ineffective, and inappropriate conveyance infrastructure. Culverts and jack and bores too small, catch basins higher than the streets, canals taxed to their limits. But I also take time to talk to the residents, and many residents had said for years that their flooding problems did not start until the parish grew and new homes came in. Now, I'm not against growth, but we have to do growth in a smart way. These homes often tie into the existing drainage infrastructure without improving the existing conveyance infrastructure that was designed for the very first development. Now, I know this council believes that this is an issue because at the beginning of this council meeting, we talked about creating an ad hoc subcommittee to decide whether we should regulate singular home building and the fill required on those lots and preventing water to be put on their neighbors. So unquestionably, you all should believe that major subdivisions have an impact on adjacent subdivisions. One thing is certain, the more land you develop, the less absorption you have, the more concrete you put down, the more runoff you have. The storm runoff from this new subdivisions connects into existing infrastructure. This infrastructure is often designed, like I said earlier, for 10-year storms, something that we are receiving quite frequently. When you combine this outdated infrastructure with new developments and you add torrential downpours, we get the devastating flooding that we are seeing today. The flooding we saw this past weekend is a prime example. We have an area that was developed too fast and no thought was given to the conveyance infrastructure, especially at the railroad. Now, after there's no more room to develop and the developers are long gone, the taxpayers of the parish have to come in and foot the bill for these updates. This is something that can be shared with the developers on the front end. We have an opportunity to do things differently. We have an opportunity to prevent the same mistakes in other parts of this parish. All we are asking is to pause new major subdivisions while we proactively create a master drainage and sewage plan. I want to note that just because we're developing these plans does not mean we're stopping any drainage projects or sewage projects. We continue to proactively identify and correct issues across this parish with the understanding that the master plan will show us major capital improvements that are needed. It will also show us what new infrastructure is needed to support new development and give us an indication of what happens downstream from the development. Right now, your drainage impact analysis tells me what happens with the runoff from the property that you want to develop. But both are equally important. We have to take what's happening on the new development and look at how it affects adjacent developments, the canals, the pump stations. So we have to do things differently. Both of those are equally important. Now it's time that we do things differently and start developing in a smart way. It's time we put the residents of this parish first instead of the developers, and it's time that we do what's necessary to protect our residents. And not just protect our residents, but protect their most, and not just protect the residents, but protect their largest investment, their homes. I'm imploring the council to please support this moratorium. This is a big deal, but the issues that are facing our residents are much bigger. Again, let's put our residents first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. This is a public hearing for item number 2020-0178. It's now open for public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience Would care to come up and speak on behalf of this item, please do so now.
I guess it's green. Can you hear me? Is it green? Green.
You're good to go.
Okay, my name is Walter Pilier. A lot of you people know me. I've spoken on many issues related to drainage. This one's kind of hits close to home. I lived in another town before. It's called Houston, Texas, all right? They've had exactly this type of problem as a result of unbridled and explosive development, all right? And so what I'm saying is I'm here to support this, not because I dislike any development whatsoever, but I have a few examples for you in what has been done here in the last number of years. I took 3 subdivisions, which are small, but qualify for this particular moratorium. They've already been done. Their drainage impact analyses were submitted to the parish. One of them was St. Paul. You know where that is. It's over by South Dufrene. 20.15 differential cubic feet per second came from that subdivision down into the South Dufrene ditch, and it goes through 160-inch culvert, which years ago it was recommended that 3 culverts be put there, but nobody has done one thing to increase the infrastructure. It got approved. Another one was Oak Alley. That's right along Armand Boulevard, 5.12 cubic feet. Cubic foot's a lot when you're taking it per second, right? Nothing got done there. That water goes down, creeps into the Armand Oaks ditch, you know, the one that we're talking about, concrete lining right now, all right? That's very expensive, but nothing was done there other than put that water in the ditch. Plantation Estates, all these are in East Bank, 7.2 differential cubic feet per second, right? Still doesn't sound like a bunch, but nothing was done. So my point is, if you pause and you do what the parish president is suggesting, perhaps we'll get this problem, which is a big problem, under control. Take a pause. Do things right. When you have a development underway or planning to be underway, when that drainage impact analysis comes in, do something. Do something. When you have a development that's about to take off, scrutinize it. Don't do like Houston. You saw what happened a few years ago there. And by the way, that's going to happen again. It's happening to us now. Please, please vote for this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilier. Item number 2020-0178 is still open for public hearing. Does anyone else care to speak on behalf of this item?
President Jewell, council members, my name is Nick Camerata. I live in Armand on Armand Boulevard, and I've been a resident since 1993. The proposed moratorium, I'm in support of it, and the only points I would like to make is to recognize this is strictly a temporary measure. This is not something that's indefinite. There's been a time scale put on it, which we'll be asking later in this meeting for an expected schedule of some of the projects that have been proposed by President Jewell. Having a master plan for drainage and for sewage systems in a development is not a novel idea. I spent time in Florida. We have many master plan communities that work very well in conjunction with each other. So this is truly a forward-thinking idea, which shouldn't be anything new. And I fully endorse putting something in effect to try to work to alleviate the current frequent flooding problems that we have in our community for the residents that are here today. I feel that, and I implore that you act in the best interest of the citizens of the parish, the citizens in the communities that are suffering with the flooding issues, and to think of them first. Whatever your self-interest may be, please put them aside so you can work together as a team to help resolve some of these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camerata. I think we have more people that are going to be coming up, so I don't have to introduce the item every time. Have the podium.
Hello. My name is Vicky Sanji. I've been a resident of Dufrene now for a little over 4 years. It's a bit frustrating, to say the least. Many of the residents out here are beyond frustrated with the with everything going on. We're having issues trying to comprehend why would we have more more areas built when, as yesterday when we had the flood, I myself and my husband, along with my daughter, are rushing into our bathrooms that are still not rebuilt from the last flood that we just had, with no bathtub, no sinks, to see if there's sewer coming out, because we can see stuff coming out of the manholes. If we can't support that, then why would we have more areas built in? Because that's just going to put more pressure on the sewer systems. That's just going to put more pressure on all of the areas that are already here that we can't already support, because we don't have the drainage systems that we need, and we need badly in this area. And I really am pleading with you. I live at 111 Thomas Kobe Drive. Like I said, lived there 4 years. I've only had issues there. My street has flooded, but I've only had issues there the last 2 years, like really having water coming up to my door. I don't know what that issue is. I really don't, because water has been in my street. I don't know why all of a sudden it is coming up to my door. It's getting in my door. Lost everything in my pod yesterday due to the water coming up. I sent an email to the council today before, 4 o'clock, the 4 o'clock deadline. I don't know how many of you have read it. I know Ms. Benedetto sent me a response about my son having anxiety. He asked my 20-year-old daughter if his mommy is going to die, because he saw me walking in flood water. And he overheard us talking about the sewage coming out of the bathtubs, coming under the bathtubs. Is his mother going to die? That's heartbreaking. He's having PTSD right now. And I know there's other residents that are going through this, because they've flooded way more times than I have, because I've only lived here 4 years. And I just would like to say, I was speaking with the council secretary before all this got started. She asked me my name when I was speaking to her, and I thought it was very inappropriate for her to laugh in front of my face when I said my name to her. When I brought up my son and his anxiety, it enraged me. It enraged me that you laughed in front of my face when I brought him up, and you said, "Oh yeah, I read your email," and you laughed.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes is up.
I know, I'm sorry.
We'll give you more time.
I just wanted to make that point.
I do, if in fact that did happen, I can tell you she is held at the highest integrity I've ever met a council secretary. So I don't know what happened, but
It was just a conversation.
Accept my apology, but that is so out of character for this lady, we apologize.
I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, because I don't find it funny.
I totally agree with you.
My son is.
Right.
Today I had to throw all of his things out of the pod that flooded.
Yes, ma'am.
So now he's
Okay.
even worse. So I just wanted to make y'all aware of the situations that your residents are going through, and that we continue to go through, and the stress that our children are dealing with at this time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Can you state your name, please, and your
Yes,
address?
sir. Trey Grenier, 306 Armand Oaks Drive, Dufrene, Louisiana. That was my address anyway. I'm at another one now that I'm flooded. But anyway, I wanted to address the council tonight. And by the way, thank you for allowing public comments. And I think this is the greatest process on earth. But anyway, I wanted to address the council regarding the moratorium. I'm in full support of the moratorium. However, I know realistically there may not be a lot of opportunity for everyone to go all in on this. So what I would ask is that you put our existing drainage issues as a priority. please, please. I've been a resident of Dufrene, Louisiana for 52 years. Not that I think that I'm ancient or wise or any of that. It's just to tell you a story. I have never seen what has happened in that area before. The last 6 weeks have been unprecedented. Something has changed. Something has changed. Honestly, I would love to have all the studies, but I don't think we can wait that long for any of that. We need action. Action. I've been involved with the Pontchartrain Levee District. I understand with studies how long they take, how long it takes for that whole wheel to turn. We need action. Give us a chance. In the last 6 weeks, twice, my house flooded once, almost a second time. Never before has that happened, ever. In our particular area, there's not been a lot of development. I live in an older neighborhood with not a lot of connections that have come in here recently. I would challenge the administration and the council that is here today. Let's maintain and fix what we got. I made tours of our canals and trestles and culverts, and I can tell you, I don't think we're getting everything we can get out of it. I'm just a citizen. That's just my observation. But I can tell you, we need a chance. It rains. My goodness, we're thinking about our houses. I mean, it's a ridiculous situation to be in. It really is. There's dozens of residents out there that have questions like, why is this happening? We don't understand. Never happened before. We don't have a lot of impact from development in our area. Something has changed. Please help us understand what it is. If it takes a moratorium, I'm in. If you can make it a priority to make sure we get taken care of before anything else happens, I'm in. Whatever it does, top priority, please. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grenier. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Yes, my name is Melanie Robert Callender. I live at 129 Zeller Street in Ama. And my frustration started in 2013. So when I see these frustrated people out here, I get it. I started asking for help in 2013. When I went in my yard in 2016 and got ankle-deep water, I started taking pictures. I started taking names. There's people that come out there and tell us what they tell us. We are so neglected. All the old stuff. I'm old Ama. There's people who built this. The whole thing is, why do people come to St. Charles? Because we're community. We take care of one another. We're not doing it, guys. We're not doing it. There's so many issues, and to be able to you got to sit down and have more than 3 minutes to sit down and talk to somebody. I got multitude of issues. One, the parish came and dug a ditch recently that I asked for since 2013. It got done this year. DOTD has got to do something about River Road and the ditches that Ama has no ditch on either side of River Road. The water comes down the levee into the church parking lot, and guess where it drains? Onto my property. My mom is 86 years old. She stands at the window to see if her carport and her utility room is going to flood again. It's flooded 3 times in the last 2 years. She never had flood insurance until they closed in the levee ditches. I thought they were putting culverts. Guess what? They have catch basins. Go count how many. Go count how many from the parish line till they start having ditches again. And where do they go? Y'all would be amazed. They go nowhere. I got DOTD to come out this year. They said they would dig a ditch, but they would never tell me if they would connect it to the parish ditch that runs along behind my house. Y'all have got to work together. Y'all got to figure this out, but y'all got to help the people that are already here and figure out, everybody, when they say you got to have your house at a certain level, everybody raises their whole lot. I had a cousin who raised her slab so that her lot was still level with everybody else in the neighborhood. Think about that. ton of concrete. But when you raise that, everybody around you is going to flood. You guys have got to do something. If we don't start, we can't get there. And so I challenge y'all, if we got to do legislation, do legislation. If you got to find money, find money. Do what you got to do. Everybody's counting on you guys. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Karen Nagel, and my address is 120 Ducaille Drive. I ask you to give us the gift of time. If you vote for the moratorium, it gives us time to look at a master plan. We're taking away green space every time you build a house. The water cannot infiltrate the ground, and it's going to run off, and it's going to run off to my neighborhood. We are the retention pond. So it's not part of the master plan to have a retention pond, but you do. It's Seven Oaks. It's Ducaille. It's Thomas Colby. It's the 9 homes that flooded again yesterday. So we're holding the water for you until you can figure out how to pump it out of our system. 25 years ago, my house flooded, as did the houses between the railroad tracks. They don't flood anymore. We still do. Why would you build a new subdivision? Why would you bring more people and put them under the stress that we are put under? Every time it rains, we're nervous and we're stressed. I was scared to come to the meeting. What if I get stuck here? I can't go down the boulevard. I can't get to my home. So we need to think about, before we build more and put more stress on a system that is already overstressed, we need to make a master plan. We can do better. Technology has advanced. I'm 27 years living here. We're not better with technology yet. We can't figure this out. Let's talk about stress. Let's talk about families who were isolated because of the COVID, and the day phase 2 opened, our houses flooded. The day it opened, we flooded. So now the home you were trapped in, you were isolated in, you now are tearing apart. And by the way, all of our workmen, they don't wear masks. They're coming in and out of our homes. We can't even think about the virus. We have people who are having chemotherapy in homes that are devastated. People's children die. They can't go back to their home because there is no home to go back to. We can make this a great place. I'll never live anywhere else. I love where I live. I teach here. I want to die here. But we need to do better by the people who are living here. People are under stress. This stresses our marriages. This stresses our families. We should be getting our jobs back. We should be getting our businesses running. I should be focusing on starting my school year. But instead, I'm looking at devastation. I'm looking at the dumpsters in my neighborhood. We are the people who serve on the committees. We are the people who make things happen in our society. We make St. Charles Parish great. And by the way, the investments, when you hear Armand, you think flooding. So it's not just my home that's flooded that isn't going to be worth anything. It's everybody's home.
Ms. Karen, I need to
3
interrupt
minutes?
you real quick. Yes, you can have 3 more minutes.
I'm good.
You're done? Oh, you
Yeah.
want 3 more minutes?
No, I'm good. Thank
Listen,
you.
we appreciate you.
All right.
Get you to state your name and your address, please.
Emil Broussard. I
Situation
live
you're
at
in.
223 Murray Hill Drive. I'm here today. I represent the younger generation of folks in this community who are excited about new developments, and we're looking for homes that we want to live in. But I'm not here tonight to advocate against the moratorium. I'm here tonight to support it, because I feel like we need to get our own house in order before we continue to develop this area. My wife and I, we bought our home on Murray Hill Drive 10 years ago, and we were told in '95 it didn't flood. And I flooded in May, and we almost flooded yesterday. I didn't prepare a speech. I wasn't even planning on speaking tonight. But I'm seeing the community outside and the folks and the support and hearing the cheers in support of Matt and his proposal. And I just felt compelled to talk to you. You know, Wendy, you spoke to my mom last night. I'm living there because I'm displaced. You know, as one of my fellow speakers, I'm also a parent of a special needs child who's been displaced. And it's unacceptable, guys. You are the leaders of this community. You were elected by us. You need to vote for the people that are outside. I've already heard the rumors that you guys have already made up your minds that, hey, maybe this isn't what we want. But it's the first step. We have to make a commitment. We have to go all in. We have to prioritize the drainage of this community, the infrastructure for this community. So I implore you to vote for the people that are outside, that are there, who elected you to your chairs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
This is still a public hearing for item number 2020-0178. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come up and speak on behalf of this item? Yeah. Okay. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council discussion? Any council discussion? Mr. Dufrene.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This should have been done a long time ago. Simple as that. It should have been done a long time ago. The growth should have been slowed. I mean, I was a resident of St. Tammany. I saw it happen there. I moved back here. Now, same thing. And not to harp on this, but I'm a little upset. We're paying the sins for the previous guys, all of us new people sitting up here, because this should have been done a long time ago. And I feel sorry for every one of those people. My heart goes out to them, because I had a house that flooded, and it's a pain. It's a pain in the behind. And I'm all for it. Anything we can do to help the people who are here now. Not worried about the people who are coming later. I'm talking about the people who are here now. That's who we need to help. So I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dufrene. Ms. Belloc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Bingham.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
can you tell us what has changed in the last 6 weeks to where people that have never flooded are flooding now? Because I've been hearing all sorts of rumors of why they're flooding, but I just wanted to hear from you why they're flooding
Okay.
now.
I think you'd have to take the I'll start with the May 14th flood. We had an extraordinary amount of rain come down in a very short period of time. And there's very little that our pump stations are not designed to handle that type of water. We had every pump on at those stations and running full out. That's not an excuse because we can do better. By doing the improvements that Mr. Jewell talked about, we may be able to bring that from flooding people's houses down to flooding their yard. But it's not going to ever be able to handle that type of water in that short a period of time. The storm that we had the other day also had a great deal of water, and we did, as they have said, you saw less water in the interior between the railroad tracks, and the same people who flooded this time flooded the last time south of the railroad tracks also flooded again. And in that case, quite honestly, we don't have adequate transmission lines, to support going under the railroad tracks. And that's an issue that is going to be addressed. We are working on it now, and it needs to be given full support. We can't continue down the same path that we are now. But that you asked about that particular one, and it happens. I spent a lot of my time in this last storm, rather than being in Destrehan where we had a lot of people, I actually went to Old Luling. They had a lot of water in Old Luling. And sometimes we focus on where we know that there's an issue, which was Destrehan. We've had issues there. But South Destrehan had an equal problem that needs to be addressed. And some of it comes from the railroad tracks. Some of it comes from DOTD. And we have to address those problems in that area as well. We've also had problems in Hanville. That is a lot, as Matt has discussed, associated with the railroad tracks and not having the culvert crossings or the transmission canals south of the railroad tracks. So I just wanted to expand a little bit on what you asked, because there are other areas that need this just as much.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, District 5, St. Rose, we haven't had a lot of flooding. I think one lady reported that she flooded in Diane Place, but it wasn't because of the drainage or anything. It was because of the way of the street sloped in right in front of her homes, right? That's what we had talked about. So I'm trying to figure out what's the benefit for St. Rose, for District 5 to do a moratorium, and we're not having issues when Destrehan is having an issue. And AMA is having an issue. Why would St. Rose want to be on a District 5, a moratorium? Why would we shut down everything there? Why not just fix the issues where the issue is happening?
Okay, I think I can answer that question for you. The reason you want to put a moratorium on, you may not have flooding today in an area, but if you build a new subdivision, you could. And the reason I say you could is it's not a guarantee one way or the other. You're by doing the master drainage, all our master drainage plans, that gives us an opportunity to look at what, as we develop, will happen. And the moratorium gives us a chance to get through those studies. And I know that some people don't like hearing about studies. We're trying to take, some areas have not had anything studied on them since in the mid-1990s, 25 years. And the growth in areas requires us to look at how those areas are now behaving and how they will behave into the future. So that it's real important to give us an opportunity. We're behind the 8 ball right now. We'd like to try and get out a little in front of it.
Ms.
Okay,
Bella,
yes.
it's both drainage and sewer. I mean, St. Rose has had sewer questions come up during its subdivision and rezoning activities, so it's not just the drainage question.
Yes. But that sewer issue wasn't a parish issue. Right? That's what you told me. The lines didn't belong to the parish.
You talking about Fairfield?
Yeah.
Yeah, that issue is an issue that we've been working with LJ on, trying to look at a way to get CDBG money or even implement a special taxing district to fix their sewer system. But we are getting to the upper limits of the sewer capacity on the East Bank. So, and look, the price we pay for sewer in St. Charles Parish is very high. One of the things that I do is when it rains, I talk to LJ and say, how much water are we treating? Or the day after, he'll give me a readout of what we're treating. I believe the East Bank is designed to treat 2.3 million gallons of sewage per day. On the May 14th and 15th flood, it treated 9 million gallons. We have infiltration all over the place. Now, we're treating rainwater. That costs us money. That puts stress on our systems. So it's more than just drainage. It's more than just sewage. It's identifying these projects that we need to get on top of now to be able to allow us to grow in the future, but not have any detrimental impact on the people who are here first. And if we can protect the people who are here right now and put the necessary infrastructure in place, we'll automatically protect the people who will be here in the future.
That's it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bella. Ms. Benedetto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know exactly where to begin, but I'm going to start off, and I'm probably going to go all over the place. And forgive me, but this is a very touchy subject, and I know a lot of the people that came up here today, and my heart goes out to them. The number one thing we need to do in this parish is to protect the quality of life, and along with the property values. I sent a memo out to this parish administration asking what projects were being done from 2018, what is in the works, what's not in the works. I got nothing back till tonight. It's unbelievable how this came out minutes before a meeting, that now we're going to start doing something. Now we're going to start doing something. I'm appalled. You go out there and you tell them you want a moratorium. The moratorium does not stop, does not have anything to do with an impact on a drainage study. You can still do a drainage study. If you don't have enough confidence in your administration, in your director, to turn these subdivisions away because they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or they're not giving the drainage and the subdivisions in the wrong spot, why are we here? You don't have enough trust in them? There is a checklist that has to be checked off when someone does puts in for a subdivision. If it doesn't meet the criteria, then tell them no. Why can't we do that? How does a moratorium help put equipment on the ground and work being done? And that's what I want to see done, work being done. Yeah, you said we're going to do these after you find the money and things like that, but there's already money in there that was already dedicated. So why haven't they been done? Why haven't the canals been drug out? Now, step one is not a moratorium. It's putting equipment on the ground. I've been holding my breath all night, just like you're doing right now. So hang on. The first step is to put the equipment on the ground and help get some flow through these canals to make things flow better. So these people aren't holding their breath every time. I told you before, I don't get a call that they're flooded. They cry to me that they're flooded. They cry because they've lost everything. And now, the little bit that they had left in a pod that got wet, that's uninsurable, really. I don't see anything going on. I don't see any of these in progress right now. Or if they are, I wouldn't know because I didn't get any kind of notices. No one's talked to me about this. As a matter of fact, I know you talked to Mr. Gibbs yesterday, but I haven't had an email. I did get a warning like everybody else about it's going to flood at 2 o'clock. So step one is to get the equipment out there and get the work being done. That's step one. And you have enough that you can do in-house right now that you don't need to go out for bids. We can still make a master plan without a moratorium. That's not needed. The moratorium, again, does not stop one house from being built that will flood the next person. I know you brought that up. The drainage that was, and I'll ask you guys because I'm not sure. You talked about a couple of Mr. Walter talked about a couple of subdivisions that went up. That drainage, where does that go? Does that tie into these people that just got flooded? Or does that go somewhere else? Answer. Anybody?
St. Paul.
State your question again.
St. Paul.
The subdivisions that Mr. Walter brought up.
St. Paul.
St. Paul, he said Plantation and Oak Alley. Do they drain into the Ormond problem that we're having?
No.
Give me an idea of where these
I don't know, I
subdivisions
just
are.
asked the question.
That's the whole.
I don't know. You can come in, Mr. Walter, if you want.
Call him up. Call him up.
Mr. Walter, can you come up to the podium, please?
Please, re-ask your question because it was difficult to hear.
The subdivisions that you stated were new, I guess, to the area.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, I think it was St. Paul,
Okay, St. Paul.
does that drain into where our
Paul
problems are
drains
now?
into existing infrastructure, which consists of the South Destrehan ditch. At the end of the South Destrehan ditch, going under 7 rail tracks, is one 60-inch culvert.
Okay.
It was suggested by Brian Cunningham Ganoush in the Master Drainage Plan in 1993 to add 2 more 60-inch culverts there. Never got done. Subdivision was submitted to the parish for permitting, and the drainage impact analysis added an additional, what did I say, 20.15 cubic feet per second, which I gotta tell you is very significant when you have an existing culvert and infrastructure in a 10-year event that wouldn't handle 85. You tell me, is this insane? Ms. Cluley, you were there when I presented this to the Public Works Department in February of last year. Mr. Cochran was there, you were there, Al Seffrin was there, Snooky Fauchier was there, a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right? And I pointed this out. But yet, we go ahead and we do things like approve that subdivision. The one that's over there on Audubon Place.
Let me stop
go
you
ahead.
for one
Sure,
second. When
sure.
you say we approve, the planning and zoning gave us check mark, commission.
The process is the process.
I
You're correct.
understand.
Planning and zoning say approved. Or what they do is they submit documents to Public Works for review. Public Works looks at it and says you need to provide some additional things and some additional analysis from outlying properties, which they never did. But it still got approved. And this council then said, go. And it got built. I saw some pictures of it this morning somebody sent me. Just this morning. And the streets on that subdivision are flooded. Where does that water go? It goes into the same canal that people on the east side of South Destrehan, on the east side, those properties can drain off into that ditch. There's a berm, but when the water gets high, the water that goes in the front of their houses into subsurface drains goes across South Destrehan into Hill Heights subsurface drainage. The system we have is ailing, but when you go, and this is a small example, look at the ones you've got on the West Bank that are getting considered right now. These are enormous. It's seriousness. I'm not kidding you guys. If we continue doing what you're saying, and I agree that the process should be, you get the documents in the hands of planning and zoning, they vet these documents with Public Works, and then somebody should say, stop this nonsense. I agree with you. But the problem has been in this parish, they don't do it. So guess who suffers? 18 months later, you get a dedication of a subdivision. Guess who suffers then? The citizens of this parish.
Okay, my main question was, where does that flow?
Into existing infrastructure, which can't handle any longer what it already handles.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? I'll go through the other subdivisions.
I want to know if that drains.
You're going to talk in front of the council.
Yeah. You're going to be good. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know, where that went, because you brought up those subdivisions. So I want to know,
Those-
what impact that had,
Thank
where it was
you for
going.
asking. I'm glad I could clear that up. But this is not a small problem. Those are small subdivisions. Those are small. Wait till you get to the big ones. Thank you.
So this Ormond Oaks ditch lining, that seems to be, that's okay. No, it's all right. This Ormond Oaks ditch lining that's in here, that seems to be something that it's got to go out to bid, but I don't know that it does. I know that they had engineer proposed to install 3 different subsurface. We'll move on with that. It's not that. I'm not worried about that. I want to see the canals being dug out. I want to see, there used to be a program where we sprayed the canals, the Cypress Lakes, the dredging of Cypress Lakes. Where's that project?
Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, I do.
That project was woefully behind and way over budget.
Now, where is it?
It's being transferred to Public Works for us to complete it more efficiently.
Okay,
But we've
so
been seeing it.
do it now.
We've
Why
been
can't
seeing
we
it
do it now?
perform well. We've been seeing it perform well as is. But what we don't need is to spend $2 million dredging those lakes and it take 3 years. If I can go in and do it cheaper and more quickly, that's what I'm going to do. I've already talked to Ricky Bosco. He's in agreement with that. So we're working on the scope and we're pushing forward with that. But we can't afford to waste money on big things like that when we can be doing them ourselves. In regards to putting
you did
equipment,
make a statement, you didn't stop anything, and you did stop that.
but we transferred that to Public
You
Works.
made a statement that was a lie, that we didn't stop anything.
Okay.
You stopped it. That's it.
Okay. Well, look, I'm interested. Look, hold on. I'm very interested in all of this grandstanding because you and you have been on this council. You've been on this council for 12 years. Where has your outrage been then? Where was your outrage then?
When I
Where was your, listen to those residents out there.
Matt,
You jog past these issues every day. You jog past these issues every day.
You bet I do. And I got to face your constituents that you're not helping for 6 months.
Not helping.
You haven't, Matt.
Where?
Right here.
Hold on.
This is what I've been doing.
You know what?
You stopped it when you came in.
You know what?
In the last 4 years, we did more
Guess what?
drainage than the prior 8 years.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because at the last council meeting of 2019, you and Milton Alamo questioned the drainage. You said, I'm insulted. I'm insulted that anyone would even ask about the drainage.
Is that when you asked for a moratorium for us to stop everything?
No, we have gotten more done. Those are your words. We have gotten more done than we ever have.
But guess what? But
guess what?
We're not going to conduct this
You
meeting
can't
this
put
way.
Band-Aids on a gunshot wound.
I have to ask you to stop.
Wendy has the floor.
Wendy has the floor.
You came into this office and you turned us all away in the very beginning. You cut us off. And you didn't keep us informed. You called us when you wanted us to be called. You told us what you wanted us to hear when you wanted us to hear it. It's funny, huh, Mike Palamon? It's funny. This is a real joke. I think you are a joke.
Don't do that.
I'm not laughing.
You did laugh.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Play it back.
Mike, come on, man. Jesus.
Go look at the 2018. Go look at the first council meeting
We're not
after
perfect.
2018.
Put some equipment on the ground and
Listen to
relieve
me.
these people from
Go
what's
look at
going
the first
on.
council meeting
That's
after
not all I
2018.
want to say.
This is not how we're going to.
Well, I'll be
Wendy's
happy to
got the floor
respond when
right
she's
now.
done. I'm happy to respond when she's done.
You're on to speak.
I'm happy to respond.
Thank you. Wendy, you still have the floor.
I've said all I said. I want to see equipment on the grounds tomorrow, and I want to see projects being in place. Not put on paper, put in place. I want to see them working. That's what I want.
Thank you, Ms. Benedetto. Mr. Jewell, and I'd ask you to please keep this professional.
Sure. After the last council meeting, the first council meeting of 2019, I went back and looked. That was the first council meeting after the flooding in December of 2018. One thing was not apparent. I couldn't tell that there was a flood. The parish president didn't give a report on it. The public works director didn't give a report on it. And no one sitting on this council at that time said a word about it. But fast forward a whole year, when you had a lot of time to implement some of these projects that my administration has started to implement, now it's, where's the projects? We need it now. We've come in and we've started pushing this forward. I understand you want equipment on the ground. Mr. Gibbs, you told me in a meeting, let's just put people behind the tracks and make it look like we're doing something.
Please, at least look like you're doing something in this.
No, to make
parish.
it, that's theater. That's not action.
Exactly what you're
That
doing
is
right now.
theater. That was theater.
You're doing theater
And it's
right now.
Political. So what we did
good Lord.
is we started pushing these projects forward, and we're going to get them done. Now, you said this morning on the news, straight line pipe through the railroad.
Matt, here's the plan.
Straight line pipe.
Before you took the office, here's the
Is this
plan,
how we're
Matt.
conducting the meeting?
You asked about the project.
Straight line pipe. Straight line pipe through the railroad tracks. It's a simple fix. Those were your words.
It's right here, Matt.
Guess what? If it was such a simple fix, why hasn't it been done?
Because you can't get the meeting that you said you could get with the railroad.
We spoke literally with the chief engineer of the railroad.
Because you're finally moving, Matt.
That was not the first time we spoke. We spoke with the chief engineer the day after the railroad.
We have too, and we got nowhere with them.
Okay, guess what? I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to go get it done. Okay? I'm going to push forward with it.
Well, you know what? Maybe it took a little fire to get you moving. Now we got some fire going.
Yeah, but where was the fire the last 4 years, the last 8 years, the last 12 years? Looking for the fire.
It's the past. And you got a job to do now, and you haven't been doing it well.
And we have been doing it, and I take offense to that.
Please do.
Yeah, because we've
But you
been
get
pushing these
moving.
fire. Look, the very fact that you don't understand how these projects have to come to be, that you don't understand that you got to do a survey before you start digging a canal, you got to figure out what you need to do before you got to get it done. We've been pushing forward on that. These things take time. One of the things I got to do is I got to wait 2 weeks to put every contract that you've already approved money for in front of this council again for y'all to approve it. That delays everything.
Okay. You done?
I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Ms. Fonseca?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was with the administration, the previous, not the previous, part of the previous 4-year administration, and also the previous 8-year administration. And in 2016, what would be 2015-16, we had a millage that we had worked really hard to pass, along with the levy millage. We also did a wastewater millage. And I can tell you that our intention with that millage was that the very first thing that would be done is sewer master plans on both sides of the river. Because even at that time, the entire 8 years, we knew that our sewer treatment plants were strained as far as capacity. We knew we had some issues with the pond. We were already looking at some projects to make improvements with the pond, the Luling Pond. So, fast forward today, and coming into this administration as a new council member, not new to parish government, but a new council member, and being faced with what we've been faced just in the first 5 months of this year. The actual sewer master drainage plan was not done, okay? So drainage aside, any new development is going to add to that stress on the treatment plants, whether it's one home, 20, or 100, okay? We're not even talking about the drainage. But I know this just from my previous experience with the administration. And we need to do something, and we need to have a plan. There is no current, there may have been a small master plan many years back. I don't believe, to my knowledge, there's ever been parish-wide West and East Bank sewer master drainage plans. So I think doing those is definitely a step in the right direction, drainage aside. I can tell you from a drainage perspective, just in riding around and talking to the residents who have flooded May 14th, as well as this weekend, even the residents who had close calls, they came within inches, and there were many of them. We only had 9 houses report actual flooding this past weekend, but I can tell you there were many, many residents who came pretty darn close. And my heart goes out to them. We need to do something. And this administration is new. It takes time to get your feet on the ground. I know this from past experience with the 2 administrations prior. There's a learning curve. But that aside, you were only 5 months into it. It takes, to get a project off the ground, it's not, let's go do it tomorrow. It's, you go get, possibly you got to get surveying done. You may have to get right of entry. You may have to get some waivers. You may have to get permitting. It's not as simple as just take the equipment out there and go do it, okay? There are legalities attached to everything you do in parish government, local, state, federal. Red tape, everyone always hears it's red tape. So I don't think it's a matter of this administration hasn't done anything, because in my conversations with this administration, I know there are things being done. I know it's progress. But I also know from my experience, progress takes time, okay? And we need to work towards it. It is going to take time. But I know from my conversations that things are getting done, not just in Dufrene, but throughout the parish. They are actively looking at the problems that we've been presented with not only this year, but in problems that have accumulated from prior years that they've inherited from previous administrations, okay? Because these projects sometimes take years to do. So in short, just in summary, I'm in support of this. it is a tough decision because no one really wants to slow growth, especially not in our economy that we're faced with right now with COVID-19 and what it has done to the economy. But we have to do something. And I'm voting for the residents this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fonseca. Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Chairman, passions are running very high. We saw residents come talk. Each and every one of us have talked with people over the last 6 weeks on problems they had, issues. Our residents have been great stewards. They've been helping us. They've been sending us pictures. They've been sending us videos. I just want to say we need to sit and act as a team and solve our residents' problems. The infighting and the squabbling that started to occur in the beginning of this discussion is not proactive. We are here to represent the people. You know, I'm looking forward, when we took our oath of office 6 months ago, to work as a team and to move it forward. I know we're going to have some tough discussions, and we have had some tough discussions, but I am asking everybody that's sitting up here to keep an open mind. I know y'all have history. I know you have a lot of experience to show us new people, but I ask you to please do it in a respectful manner. We're here to discuss stuff. We're here to legislate. We're here to make law. We're here to support those people that are out there cheering for us, right? I ask you to remember that with your decisions. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Ms. Perrier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for recognizing that we do have a problem, and I think all of us want it fixed. There's no question there. There's no disagreement. Everybody wants this fixed for the residents. Nobody seems to have the exact same idea on how to fix it, but we all want to fix it. And we all know somehow action needs to happen. That means some different things to different people. But know this, my heart's breaking for the residents who flooded, those who've poured everything they have into their homes and have flooded 3 and 4 times. And I can't imagine what they're going through. But I know this, we all feel that for these people. We all feel that for our neighbors and our residents. There should be no question about that. None. We all feel that. We're all in this together for that reason. No question. No question. So it comes down to who's got the better idea, who's got the bigger head, who's got the better idea or the power. It's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. It's about fixing it. Period. Ms. Belloc brought up the fact that she doesn't feel like she has much of an issue in her district. I feel a similar way. I know Luling Estates had some water this past event, which doesn't make sense to me. I think this is something we need to dig in location by location. I just don't understand why we have to shut the parish down. I don't. I think something that, you know, a lot of these residents who came up and spoke don't understand, or I shouldn't say understand, because these are smart people that came up and talked to us. These are very, very smart people. What I think they don't realize, because it hasn't been brought to their attention, and what Parish President Jewell has failed to include in his news reports and his Facebook reports and appearances, is that we do have a process. It's been mentioned, you know, bits and pieces. We have a process to deny subdivisions if they don't work. And I'll read it from the code. I'll read it. Final plat approval. Upon the completion of construction improvements and the receipt by the Director of Planning and Zoning of a written recommendation by the parish engineer that said improvements conform to these regulations, the subdivider shall submit the final plat application for approval, remaining fees and other required information to the council via the Department of Planning and Zoning. All specified documentation must be submitted, and it goes on and on and on to talk technicalities. But there's a lot of information here that has to be done before a subdivision can even get to this point, and then once it gets here, there's a lot that's required. We have a process. Why are we going to stop the areas that we can spur the economy on when we're dying? The economy is tanking. Let's try to nurture those places that are okay. I've lived here my whole life. My dad lives here his whole life. My grandpa was here for almost 90 years. I know my district is okay. It is. We may have some maintenance to do. We may have some things that didn't get done. There may be a box culvert that, I don't know, got clogged up near Lulin Estates, whatever. We don't have a huge issue. And if someone needs to develop land to satisfy a housing market, why can't we do that? Again, not asking anybody a question right now specifically to answer. Gonna follow the council rules. So that satisfies the current procedure. There is a safeguard. The reason the code is there is to protect the residents. It's there for a reason. So I don't want to fuss at this administration about why haven't you done the work? I'm not doing that. But it needs to be done, and we all agree. Those things need to be done. So great, we're going to get them done, and I feel confident that you all will. And if it took this to get it there, it's unfortunate, but it's going to get done, and it's going to help the people. These projects are going to help the people, and I know it, and I feel confident, and I don't want anybody who's ever had to flood before to have to do it again. I feel confident there. I do. Back to Planning and Zoning Department. I know some of you know me and how I handle things, and I'm extremely procedure-oriented. I talked about the procedure that we have in place for subdivisions and approvals. We also have a procedure in place on how to change our code. This is a code change. Even though temporary, it is a code change. This is an item that should have gone to the Planning Department and the Planning Commission for approval or non-recommendation, whatever it is. It needed to go through those channels. And I think the parish deserves that. The parish deserves us to do things the right way, the legal way. There's a home rule charter that speaks to process, and we're not following it by coming to the council directly with this. I also feel that this is a way to circumvent the process, and I just don't play that way. There's a process for a reason. So, I'm kind of all over as well. I have some notes. I've had some thoughts over the last week and a half. I do want the residents to know, we all feel you. We all feel you. I have a coworker who's in this building who had to deal with this during COVID as well, and she's trying to live her life normally, and I feel for her. And she's here when she could be home working on her house that flooded, but she's here because she's concerned. And I'm just as concerned, and I think the work and the things that we have in front of us that we were presented as well at our committee meeting, a lot of things on that, right? This committee meeting, June 1st, talked about every single district and what project was happening there. We got a plan. It's right here. Let's just roll with it. No need for tensions. No need for condescending behavior. Let's just get the work done. A lot of us have done good things since we've been here. We have. But there's a series of unfortunate events that have happened. We can all do this together. We just have to respect each other and respect the process. So I can't support this because I feel like I'm going to be sitting on a stand when someone out there who may have been a former councilman says, you didn't follow the right rule. And I'm not doing it again. I'm not. I know if we continue to put the shovels in the ground and move the dirt around for these residents, we're going to rescue them and save them from these floodwaters that continue. I feel confident there.
Complete.
Done.
Thank you, Ms. Perrier. Ms. Benedetto?
Thank you, Madam, Mr. Chair. Howie mentioned that that things take time. One of the things we don't have is time. These residents don't have time because there's going to be another rain. And the same thing that happened is going to happen again until we start putting shovel to the ground now. I spoke with an engineer or two about a moratorium and how it affects a study impact. And it doesn't have anything to do with the study impact. It still can move forward. And I truly believe these studies need to be done where they're needed. Do we want to spend over $700,000 on a study when we can take and put that money to the projects that are needed now, right now? I had a couple of questions that were sent to me via email from a constituent. What is our drainage strategy for our Destrehan residents? If we have a detailed strategy, does it outline specifics in regards to pumps and associated equipment, strainers, grading, filters? Does it outline our drainage piping and intakes from the streets? Why do we allow the strainers to get the gratings to get so fouled, as shown in numerous pictures on social media? We only can see the visual strainers grading at the pumping station behind Winn-Dixie, but we would like to get existing, historical, and normal pump data for the flows, inlet pressure, and discharge pressures. How about visual pictures of the pumps, inlets, and exits? What actions did we take place? Did we take on previous recent flooding? Do we have historical data on our flows, pressures, and pumps? How can we prevent reoccurrence of flooding and minimize risk? What is our existing plan, and does it satisfy our current needs? What is our existing plan? How soon ahead do we get people out on the ground? You know, there was a rumor that they cut out overtime. Does that have anything to do with it? I have no idea. I don't know when you call your people out. All I can tell you is when I called yesterday, no one answered at EOC because it kept ringing, and I can only imagine it was the people about to flood again and the phones were undated. I remember the other time when I called EOC when there was 2 people working, and I've already had calls that water was coming in the houses. And there was 2 people in EOC, and Matt picked up one of the phones. Workers have just been called out. It takes a worker, they have about an hour to get to work. I've been told we had 7 inches of rain in 1 hour. 7 inches of rain is hard to catch up with in an hour's time. So I don't know. I don't know if we didn't have enough employees. Do we have enough employees on the streets taking care of what needs to be taken care of prior to the event? Who's watching the Weather Channel? Is that my job? Do I need to start watching the Weather Channel? I don't know. There's some more questions on here, but, you know, they're coming out from everywhere. They're coming from, and you're getting them. I know you are. I don't know how to answer them, but to give them to you guys to answer them. I'm here tonight to say that I'm here for the people, all of the people that got flooded. Studies are good, but they don't help you for another 12 to 18 months. So you're not helping the problem right now. You're helping the future problem. I want to see work being done now, tomorrow. Get out there, start pumping out them drains, doing what you got to do. Start doing something, because we're going to rain again, and it's not going to be far from tomorrow. And they're all going to be in the same boat they were yesterday. Water sat so long, it looked like glass in front of my house. Somebody's drain to their water that cap was floating down my street. I got a call that somebody had turds floating down their street. It's not a nice thing to have. And it's not a very comfortable call to get. But I couldn't tell them anything. I didn't know anything other than as soon as it goes down in about an hour. But last night, it took till 6:30 for mine to drain down. And there was not even a suction. So I want work being done. I don't think moratorium is an answer. I think it's a shield to make people think that this is an answer, and it's not. I want to see work. Put work on the table, I'll vote for it every day. Tell me you're going to put off something to see what somebody else says? I'm not for it. And it's not to hurt the residents, because I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm representing them by asking you to do something tomorrow. Tomorrow. So, I appreciate any help you get. I like this list, but I want to see it happening, because they don't have time. They have no time. They about lost everything they had. Not just in Destrehan. The West Bank got it this time, and it's going to be somebody else next time. So, Let's do something to solve this, and please include us in it so we can talk to the residents educated. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Benedetto. Ms. Perrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be proactive and address this procedural portion of what I spoke of earlier. So what I have in front of me is a list from 1999. This is a report of every single item that was subdivision related that made a change to the code. It was code amendments. So every single code amendment related to subdivisions. Oh, okay. Related to subdivisions since 1999. Every single item, legislative history shows that it went to the Planning and Zoning Department and the Planning Commission before it came to the council, if it was subdivision related. So why do we feel that this item does not have to go through that channel? And I'll tell you, before we answer, I'm going to implore the council to take this seriously. What we don't need is a black eye from handling something the wrong way. We want to handle everything the right way. We want to be known for our progress, not that we did something wrong and we end up in court, right? That's something we all should take seriously, because we've been there. Some of us have been there at the advice of the legal counsel for the parish, not even the previous administration, the one before that. We don't want to be there, I promise. It's not fun. So if you can maybe elaborate on this and tell me why this is different than everything since 1999.
Is it directed to me as one?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it was. Actually, Mr. Albert and I discussed this at quite some length.
Yeah.
When we look at the code ordinances for this area, you'll see Appendix A versus Appendix C. Appendix A deals with the zoning, specific zoning issues. Those zoning issues, as you scroll down, actually have a full amendment process. When you want to amend the zoning regulations, you have to follow that process. However, when you read Appendix C and you read it in its entirety and as a whole, they do not have the same amendment processes for amending an ordinance which deals with subdivision regulations. And Mr. Albert, he can actually discuss each specific area for you, how when you read it as a whole, it does not require the commission review prior to submitting to council for an amendment. Historically, those things were done at times, but the code does not actually require for an amendment of the subdivisions for the commission to have review. Now, I can say Mr. Albert, I believe, also submitted this to the commission, and he could speak to that for some review. As far as sending an email, letting them know to provide any feedback, we've received no feedback as any problems with the commission on this moratorium that I am aware of.
Two things were kind of crossed right there. The discussion in large was about the TIA stuff that's in the other ordinances, is what he's referring to there. The moratorium ordinance is not an amendment to the subdivision ordinance. It's not a change to it. It's not changing Appendix C whatsoever. It's an ordinance that would be passed. Well, I would ask you to show me where we're changing the code. Because
Even in temporary nature. In the code reads, even in temporary nature.
These are, where is that?
I'll find it. Go ahead.
In temporary nature?
Yeah. Permanent or temporary.
This is not an amendment to the subdivision ordinance in the style that you normally see. This is an ordinance the parish would be passing related to permit applications.
So you're telling me Appendix A is what we usually follow. So Appendix A.
No, Appendix A is the zoning ordinance. Appendix C is the subdivision ordinance. Any change to the zoning ordinance does have to go to the Planning Commission by code. That provision is not in the Appendix C subdivision regulations at all. The charter speaks to the Planning Commission having to review any plans that are adopted by the parish, and that's their role. Any ordinances that are enacted after that are coming from the Parish President's office.
Okay.
But this, those questions aside, what's being done right here is an ordinance in general, not an actual change. Like Appendix C won't be any different. No words in Appendix C are being amended.
No words in Appendix C are being amended.
Correct.
We're just halting all of Appendix C, kind of?
No, because it would still be applicable for any applications that are in the pipeline and any varying status of approval or review. Or we could,
After everything that's in the pipeline or to final plat approval, because that's where it has to be to not be
But-
affected by this, right?
Appendix C is not just,
Subdivisions.
it's street construction, it's minor subdivisions, it's administrative subdivisions, it's a whole plethora of land parsing related activities.
I'll just say this. I don't know that I feel 100% comfortable that, Michael, you do a wonderful job. You do. And I've enjoyed working on the other side of you. I don't know that I feel comfortable with a legal explanation coming from the planning department.
No, I understand
I just
that.
don't. And I'm telling you now, I've had bad advice in the past. This doesn't smell right.
Hopefully not from me.
It doesn't smell right. It does not. This list right here has many things that resemble this. There's a moratorium in here. There's a moratorium in this list since 1999 that was handled, it went to the Planning Commission. It's another layer of protection. I just don't understand why we're circumventing that process, and that's my opinion, and I'm sticking with that. So I can't. It doesn't smell right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perrier. Mr. Jewell?
Thank you, Chairman. Let me first just apologize to both you and Ms. Benedetto. Of course, this is a heated discussion.
Accepted, and mine too.
I accept it as well. Ms. Benedetto, I apologize for impugning you and the chairman. I do want to work with you all. I want to bring you accurate information. Again, we've been working on this since before May, this plan. Like I said, some of these projects were identified in the previous administration's master plan. We went ahead and started selecting those engineers to get that done. I think we can share the same level of frustration about wanting to get equipment on the ground and getting these ditches dug and getting these things moving. But we have to make sure that we're doing it the right way. We will be pushing forward our in-house projects. It took us 2 weeks to get the scope in the survey together for Riverlands to do the survey. They are now working on that survey, signed that contract today. They are moving forward that survey. As soon as we get the survey and the cross sections, we'll be able to put the dirt, get the dirt flying. Before then, we're going to be clearing and grubbing debris from those ditches to make sure that we can get it cleared out for when the larger machines come in and dig. It's very frustrating. Nothing in government is ever fast. We're trying to push forward as fast as we can. The reason that we have introduced so many new ordinances tonight as in regards to the jack and bores and other contracts is because we've been pushing so hard. It takes time to negotiate contracts. It takes time to make scopes for our work. And you can ask Miles Bingham. They have been every day hard at it. You can ask Mike Palamone, every day hard at it. I have been pushing them, along with all the other issues that we're dealing with in the parish. We've been pushing it forward. I don't want to do more. I don't want to do more studies either. But our conversations with the railroads have showed us that we need the 100-year analysis. And these conversations with the engineers who have done work with these railroads show that the railroads want 100-year analysis to tell them what culverts that we can do. We're going to have enough projects for a lifetime out of this. We've also asked that we look at future growth. The reason we asked for a moratorium is because, and you're right, we have a subdivision process and we can turn people away. But right now we have no baseline in a lot of the parish to even compare what we need for what the subdivision is offering, because we have no hydraulic study in a lot of this parish. Ormond is different. Ormond has a hydraulic study. Muntz has a hydraulic study. Of course, we asked Principal Engineering, which we'll be voting on here shortly, to take into account what a new pump station would look like, but and also modeling the new levee system that's going to go there. But it's important that we still push forward with these projects, which we are. The box culverts in Muntz on either side of Evangeline, the jack and bores on C and Railroad, the jack and bores on KCS. We're pushing forward with those projects, even though we're going to have that analysis as a part of a comprehensive plan. There may be more stuff that comes out of that. There may be more stuff that comes out of for projects in St. Rose. There may be stuff that comes out for people who live in between the grain elevators. Again, we have 38 watersheds, and a majority of them don't have any hydraulic analysis. You know, what can I tell the resident standing there from AMA on what we need to do if I don't have any type of master plan to work from? We can go start digging ditches. That may work, that may not work. But we need to have a plan for both drainage and sewage. And the moratorium would allow us to just put a temporary pause. And again, I don't believe the majority of this parish is going to be under 18 months of a moratorium. We've asked to prioritize the areas that are both a priority for drainage and sewage, but also a priority for developable land. Hawnville, for example, there's a lot of area in Hawnville which is still left to be developed, but it has a unique drainage issue that has to be addressed. And it's more than just the capabilities of what the parish can do. Now, we're working hard to identify all these servitudes, and again, identifying servitudes that we don't have access to, but we're going to have an analysis done to figure out what new outfall canals we need. We're going to push forward with cleaning canals and getting permits to clean ADR and cleaning the canals we're talking about Hill Heights. We're going to push forward with that. But an analysis parish-wide on both banks helps us create a plan for both drainage and sewage, and it allows us to work from that plan for years to come. Again, I don't want to stop the new subdivisions coming in, but I want to prevent flooding to existing residents. And I've talked to Miles, I've talked to Mike, I've talked to several people, and we've decided the best way to do that is to stop what we're doing now and take a different approach. Now, we're going to hold our subdivisions to the master plan, but we need a master plan first. And if we don't have a master plan in place, these folks are coming in, they're submitting their drainage impact analysis, and I have nothing to compare it to. I have no foundation. That's the whole point of this moratorium and the master plan, to run concurrently.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Ms. Cluley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are about to spend, if these ordinances get approved tonight, millions of dollars in master plan studies, and none of that will have any impact on immediate needs, on the infrastructure, repairs, or improvements that are going to be put in place. And if your district hasn't had a flooding problem yet, you probably just haven't had the rain that the other districts have had. It's coming. So I'm glad your district hasn't had a rain problem, and I hope it never does, and I hope the rest of the districts never do, but I'm afraid that that's going to happen. But I am willing to support the moratorium based on removing areas as their studies are completed and allowing them to move forward with any new improvements. And I would like to, out of the abundance of caution, to remove this from our agenda, whatever the wording should be, and send it to Planning and Zoning Commission if they need to have it approved. So I'll make that motion.
Not following the motion.
Repeat that again? Yeah.
Motion to withdraw table, I guess.
And
Motion.
introduce to planning and zoning.
And have it sent to Planning and Zoning for their
Approval or disapproval?
their review.
Ms. Cluley, would you allow your fellow council person to have their say before we?
Oh, absolutely.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Elbert, the within the next 18 months, was there any new subdivisions that was going to be coming to the parish?
This question, or a different form of it, has been asked several times to me and to people in the department. That's not an easy question to answer because we have pre-application meetings with development. Can't hear me? I'm sorry. It's not an easy question to answer because we have pre-application meetings, consultations, phone calls, and from the department standpoint, until an application is filed or a formal pre-application is had with everyone in parish government set down to talk about an incoming application, they don't exist because we get inquiries and consults all the time. Currently, there is one application being heard at Planning Commission this Thursday night, and that aside, we have one application for 160 lots that has had a formal pre-application just at the end of last week.
Okay.
Okay, and that's in New Sarpy. The application that's on the agenda for Thursday night has a second phase with only 12 additional lots that could come in after the one that's being heard Thursday night. And there is one other that has done environmental work in terms of like environmental permitting, but has had no contact with the department for almost a year and a half in terms of the St. Charles Parish process.
Okay.
So, you know, we've had other applications, but it's not entirely fair to say this person was talking about 300 lots or 1,000 lots. That until there's more sit down or presentation to the parish, those don't exist in our field of view.
Okay. My second thing is that the May flood that we had, when you walk into someone's home and you only see the studs on the wall, you know, think about if it was our home. And it's so close to my own home as well because we have almost been flooded twice. So I wouldn't want to see someone get flooded. But just to see elderly people going through this for the third time of getting flooded, having to change their carpet, change their floors, change the whole one house, they have to change their entire house. And just to see this with whether it's us or even an elderly person at the age of 80, how does this lady go back? You know, and say, I have to go back and redo this to my home, go back and forth. So I'm in agreement with Ms. Cluley on if we, you said withdraw? Table this item and send it to planning.
But not for this Thursday's meeting.
It won't make it.
Can't be. It has to be advertised. It cannot go to this Thursday night's meeting. Now, the agenda's already been set for it and advertised. No, just saying.
If it's to be advertised, it would have to go to the August meeting.
So I have a motion by Ms. Benedetto. I need a second. Well, we got a second. Got a motion by Ms. Cooley, second by Ms. Benedetto. We're going to table this to send it back to planning and zoning to get the correct protocols in place, and then rehear this perhaps in the August planning and zoning. As a motion by Cooley, second by Benedetto, please cast your vote. And that passes with Ms. Fonseca, Ms. Fonseca, who was the other one? Nicky. And Mr. Dufrene voting nay.